Oh, hello and welcome to the Crypto Mining Show, your one-stop shop for all cryptocurrency news from the perspective of a cryptocurrency miner. I go by Blind Run on the internet, Matthew in real life, and today we're gonna be giving you guys the hint on what I think the next Lithium pump will be. Actually, just so we get it out of the way, in case that's the only reason you came, but you'll probably want some reasoning behind it, so stay tuned if you want that reasoning. I'll give you what I think it will be. Of course, this is not financial advice, and I only recommend mining cryptocurrency, and I never recommend purchasing cryptocurrency. That's my 2 cents as far as that is concerned, and my disclaimer, but what we are probably looking at is Radiant being the next one. There's a few reasons for that. We'll cover that in the future just here in a second. Other than that, we do have to talk about some new laws on the US side of things for cryptocurrency mining as it pertains to the amount of crypto payments you get in a 24-hour period. And then from there, we're going to be talking about a ton of hardware news. We're in that cycle right now where all of the hardware manufacturers are kind of starting to leak or prepare to actually announce future hardware. And that is going to include everything from refreshes on the NVIDIA side and the AMD side to, of course, new releases from the NVIDIA side. We haven't gotten any information on 8000 series necessarily. We have more on the 5000 series. At this time. We also have some weird releases, including RTX 3050 stuff, and we have some data center GPU leaks that are really interesting from the NVIDIA side. Not to mention, let's not forget Intel Battlemage coming in strong on the memory side of things. I think this is one you're going to want to pay attention to. You guys know I love my Intel GPUs for mining, especially with their nice low entry cost with that big old bus, baby. And you know, I love big buses. I cannot lie. That is I still need to make that t-shirt. Speaking of t-shirts, check out shop.sonofatech.com or down below. You can check it out too. We have new t-shirts up there, including the I Mined with the Bear shirt. I'm wearing the Kilowatt Killer shirt today, which is the nice death metal, riding, I don't know, whatever style. So, you know, there's a style there for everyone. If you're interested in checking out that, definitely go do that. It supports the channel. And don't forget to check out sonofatech.locals.com. Yes, I will plug that at the very beginning here because as you can see behind me, we have our test bench kind of getting rebuilt here. And I started the first stream yesterday over on Locals. I will be live testing as much as possible on Saturdays. And so Saturday afternoons, probably from about noon to 8 p.m., I'll be streaming a supporters only live stream for testing all of these new GPUs. We have one of every single GPU that is currently out available for us to test and get prepared for the bull market. And the thing is, there hasn't been really good testing on a lot of GPUs being done. And I've been guilty of this too, just going to hashrate.no, taking a look at their list, copying that all out and overclocks and everything. But I'm finding a lot of that information to not really be on point, especially on the AMD side. So we're going to be starting with the RX 7000 series over there and really getting the numbers in that we need to get in, along with all of the extra special stuff that's been getting launched lately. We're getting a lot more support from odd operating systems like SMOS and MMPOS for the 7000 series. It's unlocking a lot of potential there. Don't forget, we have AMD Mem tweak as well that we're going to really need to dig into on the AMD side that has not even been addressed by anybody in the community yet. So I think we have a lot of potential on that to play around with and check out. Like I said, from building rig perspective and the most amount of bandwidth available for the cheapest price, I really have been looking at Intel. And lately we've been testing out the BC250. If you want more details, check that out on Locals. If you want it early, of course, once I get all the testing done, there will be videos coming out over here. So let's go ahead and roll the ad. I think we're near the end of this ad cycle for this particular sponsor, BT Miners, who's been a longtime sponsor of the channel, great partner, everything positive there, but I am going to be pushing further and further away from sponsorships and more towards pushing locals, merch, etc., primarily due to the fact that what I have noticed in this industry in general is a lot of sponsor capture, and I want to try to avoid that. That doesn't mean that I have negative opinions about anybody in the space. What it means is I want to protect myself and my future and what I'm allowed to talk about and what I can address properly with the most unbiased, honest opinion that I can give you guys. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. There'll probably be some sponsors here and there just to make up any sort of income that I need to make up, of course, but I want to be able to choose those a lot better. BT miners may even be one that we push forward in the future, but if we can get the income up on the other platforms and selling merch and that sort of stuff, then that's kind of where I want to go with the channel. I don't really want to do the rest of it. Also, I think I want to lean obviously on the crypto mining side of the income because I think that that is more important. That also gives me more experience. If I can be successful there, like I have been over the recovery. Of course, the recovery took a long time, but over the past few months, over the past quarter, we've really gotten to the point of building that mining business back up. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and there's a lot to go over as far as that's concerned. So I'll be giving you guys some insight on how that's been going on this channel as well in the future. So let's go ahead and run this ad. Make sure you check out BT Miners, and that supports the channel and obviously supports a longtime sponsor that's helped us keep rolling over the past few years. So let's do it. Today's sponsor is BT Miners. BT Miners has been a longtime sponsor of the channel and a proven reliable source for ASIC miners. If you are looking to purchase ASICs hardware from Bitcoin to Dogecoin miners, they are available for purchase on bt-miners.com. BT Miners has recently launched an app on iOS and Android that lets you browse their inventory by profitability and return on investment. Follow the affiliate link in the description and use promo code SOAT for a discount. All right, welcome back everyone. So first things first, let's talk about some new rules that are going into place that is driving a lot of fear behind the crypto space, especially with the large mining firms, large mining farms in general. And while this might not impact you directly initially, you need to take into account that this doesn't, this flows down. They always start with the larger amounts and they go down and they tick down and they tick down. And now, we're at the point of needing to report a $600 transactions on PayPal. And it just gets ridiculous and cumbersome and frankly, just, anti-American in my humble opinion, but I'd like to hear your thoughts and opinions on it as well. Let's go ahead and hop into it though. This is reported by Ars Technica. Crypto IRS reporting crypto payments above $10,000 would be reported to IRS under Treasury plan. Fear of crypto being used for tax evasion drives Biden's admin's reporting plan. Now, tax evasion, of course, is going to be one of the big targets that they place on this movement to regulate cryptocurrency further and further and try to really smash that into the ground. It really, in my opinion, it hurts innovation the more stringent you get on these types of policies. And I think in general ends up hurting, new entrepreneurs, et cetera. And it forces people out of the business that, may have good ideas. That being said, of course, let's continue to read on because, we've been seeing this for a while. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. We've talked about it a ton as far as what the attack vectors will be, including, tax evasion, criminal use, etc., completely avoiding, of course, once they get rid of Bitcoin, if they can, they would then, of course, attack cash. I think cash will be attacked pretty soon as well. Talked about that with Daniel Keller on the last podcast with him. That was a great one if you guys want to get into all of those types of conversations. The Biden administration wants businesses to report cryptocurrency transactions with values of at least $10,000 to the International Revenue Service. Cryptocurrency already possesses a significant detection problem by facilitating illegal activity. Of course, I told you guys that was going to get brought up broadly, including tax evasion, end quote, the U.S. Treasury Department said in its proposal for implementing the tax compliance initiatives in President Biden's American Families Plan. The larger Biden plan still needs approval from Congress. The Treasury document said that the crypto reporting is one part of the, quote, quote, the president's tax compliance initiatives that seek to close the tax gap, the difference between taxes owed to the government and actually paid. The proposal calls for a $4.5 billion investment in IT to implement a new information reporting regime that would help close that gap, which was nearly $600 billion in 2019. Of course, the important part here, I think, to really kind of push into place is the tracking. Because what this is basically proposing an invasion of privacy, in my humble opinion. This is going to be a new program that is going to utilize information technology to track and report better so that they can keep track of everybody. And once that gets applied there, that gets applied out much broader than just, cryptocurrency or just PayPal or whatever it may be. U.S. law already requires that trades and businesses report cash payments of more than $10,000 to the federal government, the IRS website notes. And this information assists law enforcement in its anti-money laundering efforts and provides authorities with an audit trail to investigate possible tax evasion, drug dealing, terrorist financing, and other criminal activities, the IRS says. These are the tropes, right? Every single time we hear about cryptocurrency, it's bad because of blah, 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 and you just get a bunch of word vomit. The Treasury Department said it would apply the same threshold to crypto transactions under the proposed new reporting system, which is clear. Like I said, this isn't just cryptocurrency that this necessarily applies to. This is just included in it. Within the context of the new financial account reporting regime, cryptocurrencies and crypto asset exchange accounts and payment service accounts that accept cryptocurrencies could be covered or would be covered. Further, as with cash transactions, businesses that receive crypto assets with a fair market value of more than 10,000 US dollars would also be reported on. Although cryptocurrency is a small share of current business transactions, such comprehensive reporting is necessary to minimize the incentives and opportunity to shift income out of the new information reporting regime. Virtual currencies have grown to $2 trillion in market capitalization, and the threat of illegal activity, including tax evasion, is why the president's proposal includes additional resources for the IRS to address the growth of crypto assets, the Treasury Department said. In a footnote, the Treasury Department cited a 2013 Michigan law review report that said, quote, to the extent that cryptocurrencies continue to gain momentum, we could reasonably expect tax evaders who traditionally execute their tax evasion techniques through the use of offshore bank accounts in tax haven jurisdictions to opt out of traditional tax havens in favor of cryptocurrencies, end quote. The Treasury Department said its tax enforcement plan would more than double the IRS workforce over a decade. And of course, we're talking about hiring even more IRS operatives, which will then increase the amount of money that they need to have, which will increase the money printing that we do, which will then devalue the dollar and increase the value of your cryptocurrency that they will then try to tax again, putting more liquidity into the US dollar market, and then of course driving the price of the US dollar or the value of the US dollar even further down. That's my opinion. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as far as that's concerned. The IRS investment plan would also replace the Treasury's 1960s era computer architecture with new machine learning capable systems that will be better able to detect suspect tax returns, end quote. Reuters wrote, adding that according to the Treasury, the IRS is the only federal agency with computers that run on antiquated common business oriented language system, or COBOL. Now, this is something that's getting implemented across the board in lots of different areas. In fact, I saw World Economic Forum releasing one that is going to utilize machine learning to read brain waves and determine if you should take a brain break from work and when you should work and when you shouldn't work and how much you should work and what your productivity should be. And it will report that to your employer. It's getting simply ridiculous at this point, but also this is going to be the new world we are going to live in. And it's just coming very, 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 very fast. And there is the fact that cryptocurrency does make, by and large, a lot of this tracking to be a lot easier for governments in the end. And that is something to take into account when we're discussing different projects and their viability and how well they basically adhere to the principles of cryptocurrency and the fundamentals. The benefit at the end of the day is, even though it will be, in my humble opinion, easier to track cryptocurrency than cash, you will have that visibility on it from the regular man's citizen's perspective, which can put a little bit more power into the hands of the public, which I think is going to be a net positive at the end of the day, because then you can see what the government's doing with it, as well as like any of your peers. The fear, of course, is that turns into more and more invasion of privacy, and you get some weird dystopian future. And I think a lot of that will lean towards, once again, central bank digital currencies, and that will be the push that we begin to see as time goes on. A complete removal of the cash system, a push off of cryptocurrencies that are decentralized and not controlled by centralized entities, and into something that is controlled by governments. It is also getting a little ridiculous to the point to where, as the world gets more and more connected, it seems like we need less and less government, more local government, less federal government, at least in my humble opinion. And this kind of thing is just pushing in the opposite direction of where I think advancements should go and should be pushed towards, right? Let's move on, though. We'll go into SEC Chair wants crypto exchange regulation. There are also calls for new regulations on cryptocurrency exchanges to prevent investors from getting ripped off. Of course, this is the fear play that gets played across the board. Every single time we start talking about regulation within cryptocurrency exchanges, we begin to talk about getting ripped off or getting scammed, and this is going to be protection for you. Once again, take personal responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. Cryptocurrency is a great financial power in the hands of somebody that is willing to take on that responsibility. And don't give that responsibility over to someone just willy-nilly, because you aren't eliminating any problems. All you're doing is moving the problem off to somebody else. And that actually can put you in a more compromised position. It's like investing in your retirement over and over and over again in Social Security, right? And then you get to the age to where it's your time to finally cash out your Social Security. And they're like, yeah, you're going to get, not even enough for rent now at this point. So, if we look at the past and we pay attention to how they manage those things, how do you think it'll be managed when it moves forward? Take that responsibility. That's what I really advocate here for. And cryptocurrency is a way that you can take responsibility for that, at least in my humble opinion. They are going to, obviously use this over and over again. Nothing's really changed. It is going to be this FOMO. Or not FOMO, excuse me, this fear, right? FUD, I guess, if we want to use that term. But putting that fear into people of, well, yeah, of course I need regulation, because if I buy some Bitcoin and something happens to it, I want to be able to get it back. But if you were, taking responsibility for holding your own cryptocurrency, holding your own Bitcoin, holding your own keys and keeping that, then in that case, you wouldn't be so, you wouldn't have this problem. And once again, this is just going to be a way for people to invade your privacy, see what you're purchasing, do all that sort of stuff, along the lines of the way the current debit and credit card systems work. Anyways, Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler said yesterday that he quote, he would like to see more regulation around cryptocurrency exchanges, including those that solely trade Bitcoin and do not currently have to register with his agencies, Reuters reported. Now, this is a little comical because we had meetings between Sam Bankman-Fried and Gary Gensler and FTX and discussing regulation and so on. And so if you expect Gary Gensler to actually have any sort of positive insight on or accurate insight on this, he got fooled by one of the greatest crypto scammers of all time. And so why would you want to trust him with regulating the rest of the exchanges, right? I mean, I don't know why you would. It seems a little ridiculous to me. Why don't we pick somebody that would actually know what they're doing in this space? Quote, this is quite volatile, quite volatile, one might say, highly volatile asset class, and the investing public would benefit from more investor protection on the crypto exchanges, Gensler said at the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority's annual conference. Earlier this month, Gensler told a House committee that right now these exchanges do not have a regulatory framework at the SEC or at our sister agency. the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Right now, there's not a market regulator around these crypto exchanges, and thus there's really no protection around fraud or manipulation. There is a point from the perspective of manipulation. Obviously, with Trade Ogre recently, we saw this with Caspa. And once again, though, that problem with Caspa would have been resolved if you had your own wallet and you held your own keys and immediately exported that Caspa and ensured that there was a withdrawal system of that Caspa before purchasing it on that platform. And so I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that are going on, not making sure that there's a withdrawal option, not going through testing procedures to make sure that they can actually withdraw their cryptocurrency from an exchange, and not putting good practices into their investments. It seems a little ridiculous to me that you would put so much money into an investment and not even test the fucking platform beforehand. So if we kind of get into this, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, obviously there is this problem here, but there is already a solution to it, which is don't be a dumbass. So I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? I get a little frustrated with this every single time, but it is what it is. I had no Caspa on Trade Ogre. I sold Caspa on Trade Ogre. I withdrew in the early days, withdrew Caspa, and I would always go through the process of sending a little Caspa, making sure I could withdraw, making sure I knew what the withdrawal limits were, making sure I understood what the fees were going to be, and then go through that process, and then you're good. You're in, you're out, you're great. Just move it into a wallet that you control, and you're golden. It's not rocket science, really, at the end of the day, to not be an idiot. That's really what it is. A CNBC article yesterday said that increased regulation will likely upset some cryptocurrency investors who have seen the value of Bitcoin slide about 25% over the past month, and talk of capitulation creep into online forums. However, CNBC quoted policy analyst Ed Mills as saying that regulation would add further legitimacy to the asset class and could provide a regulatory moat around existing cryptocurrency exchanges. I like that terminology because if you guys remember, there is the kind of Trojan Horse analogy for Bitcoin and traditional financial institutions where they really want to invest into it so that they can basically, control it. But at the end of the day, what ends up happening is it turns into a Trojan horse. It drives up the price for the regular people. It adds transparency to what their investments are. And in the end, still ends up being a net positive without them really knowing, right? And that is kind of the big hope, I guess, surrounding institutional participation within cryptocurrency in general. Now, this was written, a little bit further back, I think, because I think this was written back on May of 21, but this has actually, this $10,000 treasury plan is going into effect. So there is a lot of Bitcoin miners that are going to be dealing with, basically a reporting problem, because if you're a large farmer and you are, getting a $10,000 worth of mining revenue in a day, and then you have to report that every single day, it's going to become, quite cumbersome to these individuals. This might be better for decentralization, though, at the end of the day, because it would discourage it, but you just move to different countries, and that is really what ends up happening. There's always ways around this, and the problem is that I think what you end up doing is you end up forcing Bitcoin miners offshore. And the problem I see with that is that I think the cryptocurrency will be a huge indicator into a country's economic wealth later on down the line. And if you have large cryptocurrency miners and you control those, right, all within your national borders, I think that nation in general is going to be an advantage. And I think that we've already seen, Russia really building up on that. And you end up in this weird kind of Cold War with cryptocurrency and hash power between nations. And I think we're seeing that kind of come into fruition. We're seeing leniency get pushed back, in China as far as Bitcoin mining is concerned. And we're seeing, other competitors, like I said, in Russia really ramping up their Bitcoin mining as well, even to the point to where they are kind of inadvertently investing in miners in other areas like Kazakhstan and so on. So I think to discourage it in a capitalist, society or an environment, right, where basically you're kind of leaning on private entities to bolster the economic value of the country. You need to be able to allow these people to move and function within those spaces, especially as it pertains to new technology. And I think that it will just basically push large mining firms to move into other more cryptocurrency friendly areas and regions. And then I think at the end of the day, the US loses out on not only the capital, the new capital from these companies, but they lose out on obviously the tax revenue from Bitcoin miners as well, which at the end of the day is what they're trying to get in the first place. So if you get too stringent, you end up having the opposite effect of what your intention is, which is including your increasing your tax revenue, and you end up decreasing it because you force everybody out with high regulations and cumbersome reporting plans. So I don't know. It seems a little ridiculous. Let me know what you guys think at the end of the day. I think right now you do have a lot of large mining firms that will have to report daily in this particular case. So let's talk about hardware, because this is a really fun one. We got a lot of hardware coming out. I think the first thing that I want to talk about here is going to be the AMD Ryzen 6 or Zen 6 that's going to be releasing. Their code name is going to be Medusa, and it's going to have a 2.5D interconnect with increased bandwidth, which is obviously going to be impactful on the mining side of things as it pertains to anything from Raptorium to, of course, all of your Zephyr coins and all of that. So Monero, whatever it may be, increased bandwidth on the cache is obviously going to be beneficial. At least that's what we've been seeing in the past. We've started to see even the X3Ds start to show their kind of strength in this scene as well. Obviously, I'm going to cover this real quickly, but for more details on all of the intricacies surrounding CPU mining, I'm a GPU miner primarily. I'm going to make sure I focus on that. So I'm going to push you guys over to Rabid Mining. You can check out his YouTube channel. That's RABID space mining. And that's who I would go to for all of my CPU stuff. But this is kind of exciting to just cover. AMD's next gen Zen 6 CPUs for clients, which include Ryzen chips, will reportedly be labeled under the Medusa codename. Based on information shared by a leaker, it looks like AMD has finalized the codename for its client desktop CPUs based on the next-gen Zen 6 architecture. Sally sells seashells down by the seashore. The upcoming Zen 5 desktop CPU line will fall under the Granite Ridge codename, while the Zen 6 desktop CPU line will feature the Medusa codename. These chips aren't expected to arrive until late 2025, early 2026, so it will be some time before AMD officially starts sharing information on them, as even Zen 5 isn't detailed much officially. In addition to the codename, it also looks like AMD's Zen 6 client CPUs, or Medusa for the code name, will be utilizing a brand new interconnect based around a 2.5D chiplet design. This design is said to allow for higher chip-to-chip bandwidth so that the Zen 6 CCDs can communicate faster through each CCD and also with the IOD. A die representation was showcased using Navi 31 GPU with the two MCD stacks representing the dual CCDs and the small portion of the GCD representing the IOD. This might hint that the Zen 6 Ryzen CPUs might once again adopt a dual CCD chiplet design with a single IO die. The IO die might get bigger to incorporate next-gen technologies, but we can't say for sure right now. Some additional details pointed out that Medusa CPUs will not be stacking the CCDs on top of the IOD due to higher costs associated with such designs. AMD might experiment with these designs in the future as they did with 3D V-Cache stacking on Ryzen 5000 chips and further matured with the 7000 SKUs. Based on previous information, the Zen 6 architecture is codenamed Morpheus and is going to launch by 2025 to 2026. Now, 3D V-Cache has been an issue in the past. So primarily with temperatures. That's why your total power, your TJ Max is like 84 degrees Celsius. And this can actually, in day-to-day usage, as I was playing with these, at least in my humble opinion and experience, what I've noticed is a degradation of performance the longer the chip runs. Obviously alleviated with better cooling, specifically water cooling, but even then you end up still always throttling with 3D V-Cache off and on in my experience. So the best thing that I found with those is to bring down, of course, the undervolt, if you can undervolt it and bring that down, but you can't really get that cache to bring, obviously less power through it. So I have stuck with personally, like in rigs that I'm building for people, if they do want Ryzen, I do stick with non-3D V-Cache systems. And even though like everybody wants to buy the 7800X 3D, which I get because in benchmarks it's cool, but that's like a 5-minute benchmark. Once you're gaming for 8 hours, you start getting a lot of weird oddities with it, at least in my experience. I'd like to hear y'all's experience. With the mining side of things, I have noticed the same kind of performance variance on the 3D caches. So I've kind of just stuck with the other stuff. So I really think going this design could benefit because you're not stacking the cache, and we'll see how it goes. If we could get that 3D V-Cache performance with this architecture, that would be cool, but we are still a ways out. There is the roadmap up here. We still have some releases before this that obviously have to come out down the line. So it'll be a little bit. We're at Ryzen 7000 now, which is Zen 4C. We have Zen 5C that'll be coming out here pretty shortly, I think, or at least before this, which will be the Ryzen 8000 SKUs. And the EPYC side will be Turin. The process node will be decreased to 4 nanometer and 3 nanometer. So that is going to be a pretty good pump up, I think, at the end of the day. I'm looking forward to those coming out as well. Obviously, with the mining side of things too, really with that coming down, I think the benefit is really on the decrease of the price of the older architectures in general, right? So the benefit from the mining perspective is you start getting people that are upgrading their rigs, and CPUs have a pretty big cut down for resaleability, especially on platforms like Facebook Marketplace and so on. So that's really where I would be looking at the end of the day. Let me know what you guys are doing with their CPU farms. I think CPUs are not something I'm going to focus on the channel. Like I said, let's get into the 5090 release details that were just leaked out. So hopefully this will be pretty cool. Let's get into it. NVIDIA RTX 5090 release details are just tipped by Leaker, and it could be heavily influenced by AMD's RDNA 4, which is really interesting. RTX 40 series of graphics cards launched at the tail end of 2022, and they're not exactly long in the tooth. Plenty of PC gamers are wondering when the next generation Blackwell cards will launch. Now, the hardware-focused YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead has a word from a source at NVIDIA that the final decision may hinge on GPU rival AMD. Blackwell is being prepared to be ready to launch in Q4 of 2024 if we want it to, the source is quoted as saying, italicized emphasis courtesy of Moore's Law is Dead. That would be pretty quick. And that timing would be another disaster. Really, this timing from the cryptocurrency mining perspective will be the same disaster that we saw with the RTX 3000 series. If the traditional halving cycle goes through and we start to see that pump up in December of 24, and we get a Q4 launch of the 40 series, which now, if they really are, if this leak is true and they're prepped and could launch in 2024 Q4, and we see a bull run cycle that starts decreasing the availability of GPUs even further, I would not doubt that we would see NVIDIA launch this right at that time to just stuff the market more with higher priced GPUs, as they did with the RTX 3000 series, and maybe even a resurgence of light hash rate models as well. This could end up being the exact same repeat damn disaster that we saw with the RTX 3000 series. I certainly hope not, but it definitely feels like that's a possibility with this leaked information. Whether or not we do depends on how Ada RTX 40 series card sales are doing and how competitive we believe RDNA 4 will be during the holiday shopping season. And the thing is like I said, it's going to be super competitive. We're already seeing GPU mining resurgence right now as we speak. And we're not even close to the typical bull run cycle. So post-April, once this starts going into FOMO and we see euphoria, it's a very high likelihood that we start to see availability of GPUs just get smashed, and it doesn't even matter if RDNA 4 is competitive or not. Remember, we still had shortages of RX 6000 series GPUs during that time as well, which were not performing as well as the 30 series in the gaming applications. And even in mining to some extent, with, the exception of models like the 6600 being extremely efficient, this was kind of the case. With AMD's RDNA 4 rumored to be targeting the mid-range segment of the market, is not clear on how much of a threat it will actually pose to NVIDIA's high-end products. But assuming the quote is legitimate, it sounds like the company is aiming to keep its options open. Even if NVIDIA decides to hold off in 2024, it doesn't sound like gamers will have too long to wait. However, there we go. I did that wrong. But no matter what, we are currently planning to make a big deal about the RTX 5000 efficiency at CES 2025, the source continued. Given CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, is held in January every year, it sounds like the RTX 50 series cards will arrive in the first quarter of 2025 at the latest, assuming those plans don't change. The source also gave some clues about the raw power of the Blackwell architecture. Quote, as for performance, Blackwell's rasterization uplift over Ada will be as impressive as Ampere to Ada RTX 40, which really wasn't that much if you ask me, at least most people that I talked to about this. However, the RTX 4090 was cut down by more than 10%, so it's plausible we could make the 5090 feel like a similar uplift if we felt threatened. That might feel a little disappointing given the RTX 40 launch was a touch underwhelming. But as our sister site TechRadar points out, consumer graphics cards probably won't be NVIDIA's bread and butter for too much longer, thanks to the generative AI boom. Demand for NVIDIA silicon is far more profitable sector that has gone through the roof. If the current AI gold rush isn't a false dawn, that could mean NVIDIA completely pivots away from gaming in the next few years. So perhaps we should just be grateful that there's a roadmap for the RTX 5090 at all, even if ultimately it isn't the giant graphical leap forward the gamers dream of. Now, from the mining perspective, it's going to get expensive. I mean, it really could get extremely expensive for GPU miners if we really get into the AI sphere, right? With 5090s and 4090s getting bought up by AI farms, for lack of a better term, by crypto mining farms and by gamers. It could be that we end up in a position at the end of 2024 where, better luck next cycle because you aren't buying any GPUs, dude. That's pretty much, you got about probably a year right now to purchase GPUs, and then you're SOL. And that is a real concern that I have right now. Hence why I'm stacking up GPUs with everything that I can absolutely pull together, because with this AI aspect getting rolled in, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere, right? That's the other thing. AI doesn't look like it's going anywhere anytime soon. And you talk about everything else with cryptocurrency mining and then you got basically gamers here that are trying. Well, I feel like if you're a gamer, just buy a console at this point, because you're screwed. It's just going to be stupid. Like if you're, I don't know. Like I'm thinking back to like my 20s and doing PC gaming and playing World of Warcraft. Like there's no way I'm buying even an entry level, or like I used to buy the 26, or basically the equivalent of the 2060, like a 960 or whatever that may be, back in those days, or 760, right? 560, that class of GPUs. Those are getting so ridiculously expensive that you're basically purchasing a console for the price of just the graphics card, and the graphics card isn't even like that much better than it used to be. So it's getting a little ridiculous. Well, we'll have to see where it goes. But what do you guys think? Are there going to be any GPUs available come 2025, or do we see another apocalypse of the GPU space and no availability? Well, and then we'll just start to see PS5 Pros get modified for cryptocurrency mining. On another note, we have basically pricing for the Super Series from RTX 40 Super Series, and the pricing rumors look as expected. I don't think that there's really anything here that is surprising. I'll let you take a look at that while I take a sip here, but we're looking at the RTX 4080 Super being $999 on launch, 4070 Ti Super being $799, and the 4070 Super being $599. Reliable source Megasize GPU has disclosed the expected pricing details for the upcoming RTX 40 Super series. Given the consistent accuracy of this leaker's information in the past, it can be considered trustworthy. It's worth noting that the revealed pricing also aligns with the data shared by Moore's Law is Dead, once again a reliable source for leaks. As per Megasize GPU's post, the RTX 4080 Super is expected to be priced at $999, marking a $200 reduction compared to the 4080 non-Super when it was initially launched over a year ago. This particular SKU exhibits the most significant price adjustment with the Super Series, despite displaying comparatively modest improvements in the specs. Meanwhile, the 4070 Ti Super is rumored to be priced at $799, mirroring the exact MSRP of the non-Super card at its launch precisely 1 year ago. Additionally, the RTX 4070 Super is slated to take the place of the non-Super version at a $599 price point, strongly suggesting an impending price reduction for the latter. If the previous speculations hold true, both the 4080S and the 4070 Ti-S are expected to replace existing SKUs, while the RTX 4070S is anticipated to coexist with the current model in the market. NVIDIA has no intention to officially price cut existing models, at least officially, which seems absolutely ridiculous to me for the RTX 4080 pricing structure. But at the same time, if they are seeing the trends that I'm seeing, I think they feel like they have nothing to fear, and they're probably right, per the discussion we just had. If the previous speculations hold true, yeah, so we got that. Whether the new information is correct, we should learn soon enough. Now, here's some specifications for these. And unfortunately, we aren't seeing a huge improvement on the memory side of things. However, on the core side of things, we are seeing some improvements. I should be careful with that. We are getting a bandwidth boost. With the 4080 Super, though, only going up about 25 or 20, was that 24? Not even 20. I'm doing that wrong. Yeah, I'm doing that wrong, right? Yeah, 19 gigabytes per second on the bandwidth. So from a memory perspective, nothing great there. I think the interesting one you really want to look at is this boost up on the RTX 4070 Ti. which is going up from 504 gigabytes per second to 672 gigabytes per second at 285 watts. This means we'll have basically, from an ET hash perspective, I mean, we will be looking at around 100 mega hash per second. And that means that, you know, on the Ergo Autolicos V2 side of things for the memory performance, we'll be looking at like 200 mega hash per second, and it's staying at the same TDP. So these things could be killer for mining memory intensive algorithms. I think obviously the biggest one that we would talk about would be Ruthenium, now renamed to Hypera, with ETH B3 and the absence of ASICs and FPGA on the network and the adoption of Shanghai and its recent price increase. Ruthenium would look really good, or Hypera, I should say, would look really good on these GPUs potentially. And that is because we're getting a 256-bit bus instead of the 192-bit bus. Yeah! Which is like, at least we can pay less than $800 for a 256-bit bus on an NVIDIA GPU, which we have not seen in ages. You know, I was really disappointed with the 4070 getting that 192-bit bus, especially coming off of the 3070. It was like, okay, we're getting faster memory, cool. But then you basically shrunk our bus and gave us a skinny old bitch. And I want the big one, you know? So we're getting a big bus on a 4070, and although it will be a 4070 Ti Super, but the pricing is supposed to come in at the Ti pricing. So I think, you know, hey, that'll look good as far as that's concerned. The 4070 though, 4070 Super, still pretty disappointing. We're keeping the same memory bus, we're keeping the same bandwidth, so not really good as far as that's concerned. And even then too, if we go back to talking about core clocks and really talking about, you know, are these things going to be better from the, you know, from the perspective of things like spec mineable coins, Blake 3, you know, things that do eventually get FPGAs on them, things that are dual mineable, whether that be a Lithium, Radiant, whatever it may be. Caspa is no longer, obviously, with the move to ASICs. But if we look at that perspective, we're only getting a 45 megahertz boost clock bump on the 4080 Super. Not that impressive. The 70 Ti Super versus the 70 Ti, not getting a huge bump there. But as that's on the actual speed, which is expected. What we are getting though is a decent increase in the CUDA cores, which should give us a decent improvement in essentially the performance on those on those algorithms, at least presumably, right? So that's kind of what we're hoping for. The 4070 Super might be on those algorithms closer to what the 4070 Ti is now. And then on the 4070 Ti Super, it's a little, I was hoping it would get closer to the 4080. It's not quite there. But, you know, I think it makes up, more than makes up for it on the memory bandwidth side of things. What do you guys think about the Super refresh? Are you excited about it from the mining perspective? Are you planning on picking one up? If so, which one are you going to pick up? And what are you going to mine with it? Let me know in the live chat and the comment section below. Now, we have a little oddity here too, floating around from the RTX 30 series. And this one's kind of interesting. We have a 3050 coming out. But the interesting thing about the 3050 is we are getting six gigabytes of memory, albeit I believe it's at a pretty low, yeah, it's at 224 gigabytes per second, but that will be enough, you know, to load DAGs of most coins. The thing is I think it won't work. It won't work on Conflux, unfortunately, and I'd really, I think you want 8 gigabytes of memory to keep your door open to Conflux, personally. Right? I think 1660 Supers, 1660 Ti's, anything with 6 gigabytes is kind of pushing the limit. Last cycle, it was 4 gigabytes, right? Like you wanted to have, you know, 6 gigabytes or more. This cycle, I really think you want 8 gigabytes of memory or more to be in a good position to be able to bob and weave through all of the algorithms and their requirements. That being said, this is still a budget option. And if you're looking at just practicing, cryptocurrency mining, you want to put together a rig, load Hive OS on it and play with it, hey, maybe not a bad option. We stumbled upon some specs of unreleased RTX 3050 gigabyte model. There's 6 gigabyte models, which we confronted with our sources. And one of the NVIDIA board partners, Palit, is already planning its 6 gigabyte models, which should appear this quarter. At least 3 models are in the works, 2 of which are part of the Storm X series and 1 from the Calm X series. Now, the coolest one here that I think, and I say that pun intended, is going to be the Palit with basically fanless. And why that is awesome is, from a octo miner perspective, if you're going to build out one of those, a server case perspective where you don't need fans, it reduces the amount of moving parts, it can stay cool, and you reduce replacements, and their resale value is a little bit easier, at least in my humble opinion, because there aren't very many fanless options. And on top of that, you aren't going to have a bunch of broken fans to replace. Kind of nice as far as that's concerned. So there is that option. I like fanless. If I can ever get it, I do. That's kind of the way I go. I also strip a lot of the fans off of my GPUs. I used to not. And then basically all my fans started dying. And then I was trying to replace them all. And then I was like, well, crap. Now at this point, I have no resale. I got to replace all these damn fans. It's a pain in the butt. It's much better too, as soon as you get the GPU, if you're running octo miners, server cases, my opinion, the best thing to do, rip those fans off, throw them in the box, put that box to the side. When you're ready to resell it, bring that box out. You got a brand new fan shroud to throw on. The bearings will be brand new. It'll be like new. All you got to do is replace the thermal pad and the thermal paste, and you're off to the races. It's going to sell better. It's going to look better. It's going to have less issues. It's just the way it is. That's what I do now, is if I'm going to build one, the plan is pull the fan shroud off, throw it in the box, put it to the side, worry about it later. Among a few of the desktop GPUs, the Storm X model uses the actual physical PCIe 4.0x8 connector. Unlike most modern GPUs, it does not have a full-size 16-lane interface. Even on modern cards like the 4060 series, this full-size connector has no electrical connections for half of the lanes. However, it may serve as a structural support for heavier designs. Apparently, the Storm X series may not need it. Now, speaking of the fanless model, it's worth mentioning that the last Calm X model was introduced almost 4 years ago, specifically the 1650 Calm X, released in February of 2020. Surprisingly, Palit has not revisited their lineup with this fanless design since then. According to the 3050 specs above, the card may generate up to 115 watts of power, which seems quite high. The previous rumors indicated that the 3050 6 gigabyte may have only 70 watts of thermal design power, which would make a lot of sense considering, the 1650 Calm X was at 75 watts. I'm hoping it's on the lower end of things, because if it's really up there higher at that, basically that 8 gigabyte, or sorry, not 8 gigabyte, but closer to the 8 gigabyte model, then it kind of makes it pointless. Speaking of which, by the way, there will be a 3050 8 gigabyte model, and that's going to retail though at $249 USD. The 3050 6 gigabyte model is $179. And if you compare this to like an Intel Arc A750, which you can get for under $200 pretty reliably these days, it doesn't make sense to purchase either one of these in my humble opinion. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about them. At the end of the day, the only cool thing here, I think, is the fanless design on that one particular model. That's how I see it as far as this is concerned. Now, there is a mystery going around for the Skinny Joe, which is an NVIDIA GPU that was spotted with a 700 watt TDP rating. Theories abound about the new beastly silicon. And no, I don't think it's a 4090 Ti. GPU detective, this leaker, Harukazi 5719 on X, has uncovered the existence of a new GPU codenamed Skinny Joe, sporting an extremely high 700 watt TDP. The monstrous TDP aligns with NVIDIA's outgoing H100 and incoming H200, which also sports the same power rating. That leads us to suspect that rather than aiming to be one of the best graphics cards for gaming, Skinny Joe is more likely an updated enterprise GPU rather than a potential RTX 4090 Ti Super. Assuming we're correct, while this new enterprise GPU could be anything, the codename suggests it might be a revised Hopper H200 GPU with a smaller packaging. The H200 will be one of the fastest GPUs ever, promised improved AI performance and more memory than the existing H100 variants. A new and potentially smaller model could allow NVIDIA to squeeze even more H200 GPUs into its DGX rack-mounted servers, or alternatively shrink the server size from the 6U DGX chassis to something more compact, allowing for more servers per rack. Now, we're talking about memory bandwidth being 4.8 terabytes per second, and this is just a dream of any cryptocurrency miner, especially from a GPU miner perspective. It is quite unattainable for most people. Other theories include that this new model could also be a PCIe-based version of the GPU, which would greatly expand the H200's compatibility with non-NVIDIA specific hardware. The H100 GPU came in several variants, including a PCIe form factor, a dual-card H100 NVL PCIe model, and several different SXM options. So far, the H200 only comes in an SXM form factor, limiting its compatibility with other solutions. The problem with the idea of a PCIe variant is the GPU's 700 watt TDP. The PCIe-based version of the H100 had a maximum power envelope of just 350 watts, whereas the SXM model was the only model to sport the maxed out 700 watt TDP. It's unlikely NVIDIA has created an air-cooled PCIe solution that's small enough to fit in a server chassis and also supports a 700 watt TDP. So we're back to some other form of H200. It would make sense if this is some new derivative of the H200 with either performance or form factor changes to address certain markets. This would allow NVIDIA to further increase its market share and revenue from its already amazingly profitable H100. For some perspective, NVIDIA's new Hopper GPUs are in such high demand that it produced over 900 tons of H100 GPUs in just one quarter. Now, as far as could it be a 4090 Ti or Super, even though it's very unlikely, it's not entirely out of the question for Skinny Joe to be an RTX 4090 Ti Super or Super. He doesn't suggest it's an enterprise GPU, and there's a slim chance that the GPU is in fact a gaming card. The timing would be great in that case, as NVIDIA is expected to launch its 40 series Super refresh this month during CES 2024. Rumors say that there will be a new 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and 4080 Super cards. Why not add a new Halo RTX 4090 Super to the lineup for good measure? I don't think that we would really see one with a 700 watt TDP. I don't know how they would manage that. NVIDIA has plenty of room to make for more powerful variant of the already blisteringly fast RTX 4090. The AD102 die on the 4090 is not even close to being fully utilized, with the full die packing 12% more CUDA cores and 33% more L2 cache capacity than what the 4090 offers today. On top of all of this, NVIDIA could also increase the memory bandwidth, please do, please do, to give the card extra performance. Add in a second 16-pin power connector, and perhaps we might even have fewer issues with melting adapters. We know NVIDIA was thinking about releasing the 4090 Ti or similar at some point, or a new Titan GPU. The 4090 Ti Titan Ada Founders Edition cooler was leaked on Twitter ages ago, but it was reportedly canceled midway through development for unknown reasons. we suspect power requirements were a concern, which I would assume as well. But perhaps it wasn't fully canceled and instead underwent a transformation into something else. That's probably just wishful thinking, but if a refreshed 700 watt gaming GPU does rear its head, don't expect it to come cheap. Now, it would be really weird if they announced a 4090 Super and on top of that, they went ahead and kept the same pricing scheme that we saw leaked for the 4080, 4070 Ti, and 4070 Super, because we would see basically a 4090 pricing on the 4090 Super, which would be simply insane and probably not going to happen given the kind of greedy nature of the NVIDIA pricing typically, right? But the reason why they're doing the Super refresh right now is clearly because of the 7900 XTX, which came in at a fantastic price and is just, you know, a really good option and an available option for gamers. We'll have to see how it does for, of course, the mining side of things, but I do have one sitting right over here that we're going to get into testing later on in the week. Intel Battlemage GPU specs confirmed, and they could take on NVIDIA and AMD. Now, this is the exciting one. I'm really hoping we get more and more competition in this market. We need it. Lord knows we need it. Intel plans to step its battle against AMD and NVIDIA in the field of graphics cards with the introduction of the Xe2 graphics card architecture. Most people will recognize the name Intel, and PC builders will know them as one of the big two producers of consumer CPUs, with a really disappointing release, I think, on the 1400 CPUs, in my humble opinion. In fact, to the point where I don't even want to run a 14900K because it's so damn hot and has so many issues. I just gave up on it, and we knocked down to the 14700K, which I guess makes sense, but anyways, off of that rant. In the past couple of years, however, Intel has broadened its scope to include graphics cards with the introduction of the Intel Arc series GPUs. Now, 2024 is set to be a three-way GPU battleground as Intel gears up to launch its newest GPU series, the Intel Xe2, codenamed Battlemage. A recently revealed roadmap includes confirmation of Intel's plans to introduce the first of its new Xe2 GPUs in the second quarter of 2024. The first of the chips to be launched featuring the Battlemage micro architecture will be the BMG G10, a high-end card that will be joined in the product lineup by the BMG G10 and the BMG G21. I don't think that this was right. I think that's a misprint. But anyways, a firm release date for the latter two lower-end cards has not been confirmed. So specifications here, and obviously the one we're going to go to right away, 16 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory, not 6 memory, so it will be presumably faster. So we'll have a bigger bus and faster memory, which means out of the box technically, and we have more of it. So if you go from like an 8 gigabyte GDDR6 256-bit bus on the A750, and then now we're adding in a higher frequency, presumably 21 gigabits per second on the frequency if I had to take a guess. We keep the same bus width and we double the memory size. Really what we're looking at here, right, if we go over back to our specs as far as all this is concerned, and we look at like a 256-bit bus with GDDR6 at 21 gigabits per second, we're talking about a GPU that's probably going to have 672 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. And that means from an ET hash perspective that we are going to start seeing, you know, much better numbers out of those, like 80 to 90 megahash a second on ETH. And then, of course, like that, close to 200 megahash a second on Autoligos V2. While we don't get memory overclocking right now on Intel, this will be a significant improvement regardless of that. And if they do unlock memory overclocking on top of that, we could see basically a really killer card for memory-intensive algorithms, especially considering the fact that the power consumption is going to be at 225 watts. So if we compare that once again to the anticipated minor release of the 4072 Ti Super, where we see a 285 watt TDP, we are going to have 60 less watts with presumably the same memory performance on the Battlemage, which could be fan-freaking-tastic, and is probably why the refresh is coming from NVIDIA, corporate espionage and all. That's what I would assume. I assume that 4070 Ti slot in is supposed to basically smash down, right, on that perspective. Now, we only had one new miner release for the week. It came from SRB Miner yesterday. It's version 2.4.5. Minor performance improvement on Carlson hash for AMD RDNA 2 GPUs. Minor performance improvement on the SHA-3D algorithm. Overclock parameters for NVIDIA should now work as expected on both Windows and Linux. They fixed issues with low poolside hash rate on Blake 3 ALPH, which obviously comes at a good time and probably was the primary reason for this release because of the price of ALPH going up. And fixed an issue that caused higher difficulty to be used than what the pool sent on some algorithms introduced in the previous version. They removed Blake 2B, Blake 2S, Yes Power Lit B, Yes Power Riots, Yes Power Rit C, something like that. Bunch of the Yes Power algorithms, Crypto Night Talio, Crypto Night CCX, Random Hash 2, Script N2, K12, Kekat, Dynamo, Minotaur, and Caspa. And then, of course, the custom Hive images. If you need to install it early, you can go on there. I think there's also one for, well, no, there's not. But anyways, you can go there and take care of it if you like and get all that information over there. Links down in the description. Doctor putting in some more work. We have a lot of work that needs to be done on the mining software side of things. I think a lot of the developers are falling behind quite rapidly. We're seeing a very different market than we've seen before, where most of them just lean on ET hash. And so that is creating basically a lot more work for the developers. And I think that means that there's just going to be a lot for the YouTube creators like myself that are doing all the testing. It's going to be a lot more work, right? We just have a ton more to test. Wild variances. I've been putting together my spreadsheets again, and it is just, it's crazy. We'll be talking about that as we get into more reviews down the line. That being said, we also have ALPH just mooning, I believe, up over 100% this week. And a lot of people have been looking at that. Now, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I told you guys Radiant's really what I'm looking at. Of course, if we look at CoinMarketCap here, we have ALPH at the top for the week, you know, putting in damage, you know, coming up to over $2 at $2.04 right now as we speak. And then from there, everything else has been kind of in the red or kind of barely moving up, really, at the end of the day, with like Kyla Coin only going up 10%, I think, over the past week, that sort of thing. Now, back in November, if you guys are on locals at sonofatech.locals.com, I kind of leaked out some information that I got from FPGA Farms. And what I got, and I can't name the source, unfortunately, so sorry, but what I can tell you is the reason why ALPH is going up is because we had a bunch of volume that was mined by FPGA Farms. And they are moving off of that. What they have begun to do is liquidate all their old FPGA hardware, like the FK33. And they're liquidating them pretty heftily. I mean, you can get really good discounts on the FK33, for example. This is apparently the cycle that they go through. And some of the cycling that they've been going through, there have been private bit streams on both ALPH and Radiant. And what they do, just to give you guys an idea, is they have these private bit streams. They take control of the volume, right? So a majority of the volume, the early side of things, and then basically wait for a halving, right? And then with that halving, it'll reduce all the other miners' basically profitability. Then you start to get the public releases of these bit streams for the FPGAs to normal users, usually at still a pretty high fee, 10% and above. And then they sell off all of their old FPGA equipment and they replace it with the new equipment. And then basically they have more volume than everybody else on that token. They hold it until the price goes up to a decent amount, then they sell it, and then they move and rinse and repeat. Now, what I would be paying attention to is whenever Radiant is going to have a reduction in rewards. I believe, I forget when that was. I need to go look that up, but that's what I've been looking at for both ALPH and Radiant. And we are going to see, from what I understand, there were private bit streams on Radiant. We're starting to see public bit streams of those now. And so we kind of were seeing the same with ALPH, or we should see the same with ALPH. This will be a repeated cycle. So the coins that have FPGAs that are running in the background from large FPGA farms that are being mined in high volumes, basically, they all go through the same cycle. We saw the same thing happen on Caspa. The difference with Caspa is we ended up seeing ASICs come in and into play there, which then further exacerbated the increase up of the price and, of course, the change in the structure there. I think that changes a little bit when we're talking about Radiant and Lithium, because we don't necessarily have ASICs for those even announced yet. But if those are in development, then we could see almost exactly copies of Caspa. So what was I told? I was told that what you saw happen on Caspa is going to happen on Radiant and Lithium from a pricing perspective. And it does appear to have taken place for Lithium. It hasn't taken place for Radiant yet. This is coming from large FPGA farmers. So my expectations and my reasoning behind thinking Radiant will be next was because of this coming to fruition on the Lithium side of things. And then, of course, Radiant being mentioned in that as well. We're going to have a different reverse philosophy for this coming up, I think, for Ironfish with its move back to GPUs, kicking FPGAs off. And I'll be really interested to see how that actually plays out in comparison to those other tokens. So what I would look for just in general is what the FPGA support release times are for all of these tokens. If you start to see public bitstream releases for a specific coin, that's when you know you're getting ready to have that recycle of those particular coins. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I had discussed, that I wanted to get into FPGAs. I have since kind of redacted that. I will focus on just Bitcoin miners, which are going to get self-hosted, and then just not self-hosted. Well, yeah, are now getting self-hosted, excuse me, coming back from the host. It's been a whole mess. And then I'll be doing the GPUs and just focusing on GPUs on this channel. I have some FPGAs that I can test out here and there, but it's not going to be a primary focus of the channel. I think if another, cryptocurrency mining YouTuber wants to take up the reins on focusing on FPGAs, let me know. I'll push everybody over to you. I know Serpent X, he is one that does cover more FPGAs than I do, so you can go check him out. Go check that out, and you can see it there. That being said, Radiant's the answer. That's the reasoning why. Saved it till the end of the show. Let's get into questions and answers. And don't forget, super chats are always appreciated, never required. First to be answered because they're the easiest to read. Tagging at Son of a Tech will highlight the message orange, and I'll be able to read it easier. We do have Hawk Crypto Mining in the chat. Go give him a sub. He just cracked 4,000 subs here on YouTube. So congratulations, my man. And I see another content creator, Mine Something. Make sure you guys go give him a sub, as well as DJ Mines. Go check out DJ Mines and give him a sub as well. That's a default movie. That TV's brand new. There's nothing on it. It wouldn't tell you what I'm into. It's off. Son of a rabid tech. Fluffy says, Matt, what is the best way to get in contact with you for consulting, a consulting meeting? You can either email me at blindrun@sonofatech.com, or if you go to sonofatech.com, you can purchase my crypto e-course, and then there's an option there to upgrade to consultation. So you can do that. Hawk says, Son of a Tech, love the beard, bro. Beard gang. I know, I had to start hiding the double chin. I'm getting older. And I'm starting to lose hair right here. So I was like, well, I better grow it out. Blaze says, Son of a Tech, should we keep a lithium for the bull run or should we sell it? Hands off that question, bro. I told you what I know. Three Mil says, Ask Some Attack, love the set, the beard, and the monster. Oh yeah, I need to stop drinking these things. Gordon says, Ask Some Attack, do you think Radiant can hit 10 cents? So what I would do, and I haven't done it yet, is I would take a look at the Radiant chart and I'd overlay Caspa right before ASICs were launched, and I'd overlay the recent Alephium. I'd line those up and then I'd take a look. I think 100x from here is pretty easy though, right? So what are we at as far as that's concerned? Would that be, I forgot, like 4 cents or something? Something like that. Why do I keep clicking the wrong tab, bro? Yeah, Radiant's at 4/10 of a cent. Yeah. Probably gonna look at like a penny or something, right? 10 cents seems extremely high. I don't know, man. Merce says, Ask Son of a Tech, what are your favorite projects on Kapow? So I guess Ravencoin, because they're the one that came up with it, or utilized ProgPow first, I should say. Because technically, Oh God, a Girl did that work. And then probably Clore, because Clore's the only platform that utilizes something that I use that's on that platform. If it's something I use, like I use Clore a lot for spec mining, so I like Clore. Yeah. Mine something says, That Son of a Tech, so it's the GOAT. If you're not in his locals, you're missing out. Locals has been growing insane. If you guys haven't checked it out, sonofatech.locals.com. We have over 700 members, or 700 signed up supporters. We have like 4,000 or 5,000 members. And you get more information there. I do articles over there. I spend a lot of time on literally writing out every step, every command for building nodes, for mining speculative coins, all that sort of stuff. It's all over there. I give you guys information like the stuff about Radiant and Alephium I found out back in November. That was for supporters only on locals. The crowd over there as well. If you want basically to get your question answered, those questions over there get answered faster than I can answer them. I mean, the community over on locals is insane. There's everything from FPGAs to ASICs to guys knowledgeable in the hard drive mining space. They'll help you get plotted. They'll help you get, smeshed up, all that sort of stuff. They're all over there in quick access. So definitely check it out. I believe right now it's $10 a month. So you can go over to sonofatech.locals.com and sign up there. The supporters just get additional access, also get access to the live streams for the live testing, which I'll be doing every Saturday over on that platform. That will be for supporters only over there. So if you're wanting to get information earlier than everybody else and see the latest updates to my spreadsheets and overclocks and all of that, that's how you can get earlier access to it. And I'll continue to provide all of the written guides over there as well for supporters only, because that takes a lot of work. So that's why it's over there. Tyson says, That's Son of a Tech, would you run vast AI machines or mine with 4090s? If you go check out locals, I have a guide on how to mine with vast AI. And yes, I have done it to spec mine. Snark says, Asamatech, congrats on the new setup test bench. It looks really good, and the toolboard is a nice for the background of the videos. Yeah, I need to update it. I haven't updated it all. I need to get it all updated there. Are we still streaming? I think I lost. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. Yeah, we're good. Philip says, Asamatech, do you think Dynex has some big moves left in it? I mean, Dynex will, for sure. We'll just have to see what happens. I mean, Dynex is the same problem that Chlor has and that Flux has. They need clients, right? So it's a weird spot because they need people to utilize their platforms to add value to the platform. So if people aren't utilizing the platform, then it's not going to increase in value just because there's no demand for it. Because it really is, those at the end of the day are a product and are probably a lot closer to securities as well than anything else. Because you are, I think, from the perspective of an investor, you are purchasing that with the intent of, you know, the developers doing something or selling their product. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. I've been thinking about that one for a little while. Philip says, Asamatech, or I did that one. Helix says, Son of a Tech, take your newer Caspa miner hardware rumor and possible ALPH Radiant ASICs. So all I know is what the FPGA farmers are telling me. I don't know that they are aware of ASICs, but it could be an indicator that they got wind of ASICs coming to those networks. That is a possibility. Because why else go ahead and do it? Well, what I've been told is the other reason that they do that is because of the actual halving timings, right? So the reduction in rewards is why they time it like that. So there you go. Hawk says, Asamatech, what are some of the things you want to achieve in 2024? And where are we playing CS2 together? I don't play CS2. I've played a little bit, but hit me up sometime. I'll try to find some time. Right now, for 2024, keeping head above water with everything I need to do. That's really what it is. I work full time, you know, as a systems engineer. That takes up most of my week. I got kids. That takes up a ton of time. And then I'm now now that I feel better, I'm now spending my evenings and free time over here testing, you know. So it's funny because it took me like a week just to get everything set up. And then it's going to take me, you know, I mean, what did we spend yesterday? I think we spent maybe 8 hours total out here testing just the BC250. Luckily, a lot of the other ones will be easier to test. The BC250, to be fair, is a pretty difficult one to test. So and once I get in the role, I think it'll be a little bit easier. But yeah. GM Zombie says, what do you think is a good bag for Nexa? 1 trillion. Alu Miner says, Asamatech, 12 6600 XTs and an Octominer X12 for 2K. Is that a good deal? What does that come out to? Never pay. I don't. This is how I feel, right? Because I never pay for motherboards, risers, cases, any of that used. You can almost negotiate that needs to get thrown in no matter what. So always calculate your pricing off of the GPUs that you're getting. So then you would basically take 6600 XTs, you would take that $2,000 price and you would divide by 12, right? And so at that point, you're paying $166 per 6700 XT, or yeah, per 6600 XT. And while they are like some of the most efficient GPUs currently out there, they have a pretty limited bus. Technically, right now, you can still get 5700 XTs for less money, have a bigger bus, and, you know, have a higher hash rate. So, you know, maybe 166 seems a little high. I'd really be closer to that 125 per, right? So I would be more in the range of 1500 for 12 of those, probably. Just me, if I was going to buy them. When is the next bull run, you think? Well, that's all covered at sonofatech.com under my crypto mining e-course, but I always tell you guys here anyways too. It just goes into more detail with the charts and stuff. With the bull run, we're always looking at 6 months to a year after the halving. The halving is going to be in April. So we're looking October to December, or October to April time frame. October 24 to April of 2025. That's really when we're looking at bull runs. If we're going off of the halving cycle, which could change with, you know, external factors, of course. Do I foresee those changes with those external factors? Not necessarily right now. Miner says, do you predict our Radiant will pump on April? I don't know the timing, right? So I think April was supposed to be that time frame. That being said, you never know with the way they adjust their strategies out, for sure. At Sonovatech, best algo for the BC250s is a spec mine coin that I will not talk about on this particular stream. So that being said, algorithms that you're looking at right now, ET hash algorithms, ET hash Blake 3, those types of things, ET hash, Autolicos, very good on those. Not so good on the other side of things, because you got to remember what they are is basically PlayStation 5s that were not hitting the core clock rates that what were needed for the PlayStation 5s, which means they're binned underclocked. So you're talking about a core clock of 1500 megahertz. This means like and it's basically a 5700, right? So if you're talking about, or I guess maybe, yeah, 5700, 6700, like in between there. But you're talking about basically a lower core clock. So when you're doing the memory intensive stuff, it's pretty good. Very difficult. Very, 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 very difficult. If you're going to buy a BC250, it's very difficult. Like, don't think you're going to plug that thing in, get it up and running and be like, oh yeah, that was easy. That was good. It's not your typical setup. Okay. So we'll go over it in the review, hoping to get that review out this week, because there's a lot of nuance to it. I wouldn't really encourage you guys to go out and purchase them without pretty hefty technical knowledge. Okay. Just to be straight up. If you're currently plugging rigs in, going into Hive OS, that's all you really know, BC250 probably not for you. It just isn't. If you want to put in the work, you think you're heftier, you know, on the technical knowledge side of things, I think you'll be okay. Crypto Outlaw says, outside of tech, anyone know Conflex stance on ASICs? Can't find anything on the devs pointing to whether they're ASICs. They're against ASICs. Just surprised it hasn't been captured by FPGA. Well, the thing is that by nature, that algorithm is anti-FPGA. It's not going to work well, right? So one, most of your FPGAs are AMD. Conflux is CUDA all the way to the core with no OpenCL availability, right? The other thing is it takes 8 gigabytes of VRAM or more. Most FPGAs are going to be kind of capped at 8. They only have OpenCL support. They don't have CUDA support. So really, I mean, it's pretty much NVIDIA or bust on Conflux. And it's pretty much GPU or bust. You're not going to see a lot outside of that because of the implementation of CUDA into there. So I wouldn't even worry about it with Conflux. They would have to redesign the algorithm intentionally. And I don't think they are planning on doing that. Murr says, at Son of Tech, is there a BIOS mod for Capal like it used to be for ETH? The BIOS mod does benefit Capal. So if your question is, you know, for the 5700 XT, for example, yes, there's a benefit to flashing the 5700 XT BIOS on. If you're talking about the BC250, there are firmware updates, but not actual memory, like memory straps. But you can adjust the memory timings. You can't overclock the memory, at least that I've been able to figure out. But you can adjust the memory timings, which will net you quite an increase in hash rate. If you go check out the live testing video, we finally figured it out last night. I think it took me like 4 hours just to fucking figure out the BC250 and how to get a good hash rate on it. But I did figure it out. It just took a while. Alan Miner says, outside of tech, the case have utility and the X12 new cost $1,000. If I subtract 500 from the 2K deal, the GPUs will cost 125 per 6600. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you think the Octominer X12 is worth $500, go for it. But is it really? Because you need to think about the fact that we are very quickly, in a lot of different algorithms, in a lot of different projects, very quickly moving away from traditional mining hardware setups. So you kind of can shoot yourself in the kneecap. Is it really worth $1,000 for an Octominer X12 if half the damn coins that are profitable won't run on your rig anymore because they're outdated, right? You don't got smart access memory, right? Which memory tunes are now a damn thing, especially on the Intel side of things, with improved hash rate, regardless of the amount of PCIe lanes you're running, right? So you don't have smart access memory. You do have resizable bar. A lot of coins are requiring more CPU power, right? We saw it with Dynex early on. I can predict right now, based off of what I'm seeing on the spec mining side of things, that is going to be a trend across more than that, because it is a solution to ASIC resistance, okay, and FPGA resistance. So you have to take that into account, higher CPU requirements. Then you got to take into account the move to proof of useful work side of things. So you got three different plays right now, innovations that are happening in GPU mining that are going to make the Octominer obsolete, okay? You will still be able to mine some of the coins, right? Capal forks, Caspa forks, whatever, the ET hash forks, whatever that may be. But you may shoot yourself in the foot and not be able to transition as easily. I don't think it's worth the money. Straight up. I just don't think it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you guys think. Are Octominers really worth what they used to be worth? They're old architectures, guys. We're talking about, like, you know, Intel, what, 6? We're at 14 now. We're so far ahead. A G3930 is going to run you what, right? Well, and then think about that. You can get most of the 12 mining boards that are like that used, like less than $100. You can get the CPU for like $10, you know? The case is really nice. Octominer is definitely MIA now too, yeah. I don't know if we're going to get fan replacements and stuff from them anymore now that Chili's gone. And I don't know what happened with Chili. I never got information on that. All I know is that he went to Cypherpunk, something went down, and shit hit the fan and he quit. And Chili was the only reason why Octominer was awesome, if you ask me. So, obviously though, they can come back and give us, you know, better CPU support. They could get SAM support, newer architecture. I mean, the cases themselves are awesome. I think what would be really good would be a new slot in, right? And updates there. And the flux boards were X99 too, man. So I don't know, dude. Like, that architecture's old. There's no SAM support on those. It's very odd. It's very odd. I mean, the pricing, obviously they did X99 to keep the pricing low, which I think is good to a certain extent. But you're really shoehorning yourself into that platform, you know, really into flux at that point. So I don't know. I don't know what the options are either. Other than I've been doing the ASRock H510s. And then there's that Mine Eclipse case you can buy that's stupid expensive. That fits those, and those kind of work for server cases. And the H510 supports smart access memory. So you get that. So you can run the Intel GPUs. You can do the tunes with smart access memory, that sort of thing. There's that as an option, but you're limited on lanes. So that's really gonna, it's like, there's not like a all-in-one solution right now that's going to get you everything that you could potentially need. I would just price everything based off of GPUs so you can bob and weave better. I don't remember which CPU on the TB360, Henry. I do have a referral for unmineable, but I don't know where it is right now. It should be on my S19 Mine Caspa video. The silly video I made. Yeah, I mean, that works for the H510. The only thing is, like I said, I take the fan shrouds off and I throw server fans in it, Tommy T. But I'm going to go, guys. Thank you. I'm going to go enjoy my Sunday afternoon. You guys enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Go check out sonofatech.locals.com. Become a supporter over there. Help me get away from as many sponsors as I possibly can, because that's my goal for 2024. Other than reviewing every single GPU for cache rates that has ever released and will ever release, that is the primary goal for 2024. So look forward to more testing on the channel and hitting you guys up on locals with as many spec coin mines as I can possibly find. Hawk did say that he spoke to Octominer in their middle of a reorg, so we can look and see what happens with that. But yeah, I have no idea what happened to with Chili or anything like that. But best wishes to everybody. I will see you next Tuesday.